I now throw the discussion open to the group.
Well, I'll say that I don't update Tech Live annually. I only do it every 2 or 3 years. And part of that reason is I'm always afraid of updates, but it's just, it takes a long time to install and it uses up a huge amount of space. And I, I only rely on a tenth of a percent of whatever it installs. So, that's kind of my experience with it. I've never had problems installing it. As a tech developer sort of person, there are things that it deletes that I would prefer to actually see that when it builds engines and so forth. But that's not the usual user problem. Anyway.
Thank you, Doug. You might want to start by saying what platform you're running on, because clearly when you're running tech, some features are installation dependent. Jonathan mentioned Mac Tech, which is what I use almost exclusively. And in fact, I use TechShop as my development environment, but that places me in a pretty small demographic. And I admit that people running Windows or people running Linux, running tech from the command line, it can be very different for us.
I agree. I do all my work on the Mac, and so. But I put in the CD and I wait a few hours, and it's whatever it takes, and then it's ready to go. So I am a happy user in that I don't have to think about the details, but it does use up a lot of space on my disk.
How about other people? And I noticed Kelly talked about security aspects. I wonder what your experience, Kelly, is with using tech when security considerations come to the fore.
So only recently were we able to connect government machines that store confidential data to the internet. And before we would have to ask for IT to install whatever we needed, and they would open it up, and then say for R, we would have to bring in all packages that we wanted at that time while IT was on our computer. And then we could install whatever we needed, but then it would be cut off. So there was no last minute installation of things. And then that's why TinyTeX is really nice, because we can install it into any folder and we don't have to change any permissions. And so on government machines, editing your path is pretty difficult and normally requires IT. And so with TinyTeX being able to operate from any folder, that's been a really nice development for us. But I don't use extremely confidential data. Like, I mean, nobody's trying to, I don't think, hack my computer to get financial information, because I'm not an economist. But I think security definitely gets to a higher level with people that could benefit if they're not currently using tech. They still write reports. It's not just like random government machines in the middle of nowhere that aren't connected to the internet. There's quite a bit that have restrictions. And another thing to think about, just food for thought, is that I don't think potentially asking a bunch of people that are currently on an internet call about computers that are not connected to the internet is necessarily the best sample size. And I work with a lot of people in third world countries that are trying to manage fisheries. And say if we go there and do a training, a lot of times we tend to bring thumb drives, because the internet connections are just so poor that we can't get them the R packages that they need in a timely manner. And so it's easier to just pass them around.
Kelly, if I may ask you, um, which department in the federal government is at the head of your management tree? You mentioned fisheries. Are you Department of the Interior then, or?
Department of Commerce.
Okay, Department of Commerce. And I'm also curious to know, is the Windows operating system the usual thing that people are seeing when they operate their computers, or does Linux come into the picture?
Linux has to be a personal choice that you can request, but it is an option. We have a few Mac users, but primarily Windows. And then we have a Tantalus server, I believe, that uses Linux, but very few people in my team use that. But a lot of times we'll have to run things on remote servers because our data sets are so large that we can't run the estimation routines on our smaller computers.
Did everyone understand Kelly's reference to R? Was anyone mystified by her reference to R? Okay. Some people are on board with that. Is it safe to say, Kelly, it has to do with using processing statistics?
Yeah, and then it's also a way to access LaTeX, but mainly I was trying to use it as an analogous in that packages are downloaded from the internet the same as like with LaTeX. If you don't have all of the packages that you need, then you have to install them on the fly or before you try to process a document. So I see those as kind of similar things. I'm just more familiar with R.
Thanks for clarifying that.